It was supposed to be an ordinary morning at the hospital. Doctors rushing in, nurses moving patients, everything routine, until one police dog suddenly refused to let a doctor step inside. Crowds froze as the K9 growled and blocked the path, his eyes locked on the man in the white coat. At first, it seemed like confusion, but then what came out of that pocket shocked everyone watching. And just when you thought it was over, what they uncovered next inside the hospital left the entire city speechless. The hospital stood tall under the pale morning sun, its windows reflecting the weak light like 100 watchful eyes. It was just another busy weekday in the city. Ambulances had come and gone since dawn, nurses were rushing in and out, and the corridors were filled with that distinct mixture of urgency and quiet dread that clings to hospitals. But at the front entrance, something strange was unfolding. A police dog, a seasoned German shepherd named Rex, stood firm on the marble steps, blocking the path of a doctor trying to enter. His handler, Officer Daniels, had never seen Rex act like this. The dog's body was rigid, muscles pulled tight under his harness, ears pricked sharply forward. His growl was low but steady, vibrating through the still air, aimed directly at the man in the white coat. The doctor froze mid-step, his brow furrowed in confusion, then annoyance, as if unable to understand why a dog would stop him from entering the very place where he was needed most. A few nurses nearby glanced nervously, whispers rising between them. Patients on stretchers being wheeled past turned their heads, their eyes widening at the unusual standoff. Why would a police dog stop a doctor at a hospital of all places? It made no sense. And yet Rex would not move. Officer Daniels tugged gently at the leash, whispering Rex's name in a calming tone, but the shepherd held his ground. His nose twitched violently, inhaling something unseen. His eyes never left the doctor. The man in the white coat spoke calmly, insisting he was a cardiologist due for his morning rounds. He pulled an ID card from his pocket and held it up. From a distance, everything looked in order. The photo matched. The name printed beneath it sounded credible, and the hospital logo was there. But still, Rex remained planted, every muscle screaming defiance. People began gathering near the entrance. The crowd's unease grew heavier. What was Rex sensing? Why this man? Inside the hospital, tension rippled like a hidden current. For weeks, strange incidents had been whispered about. Medications missing, patients mysteriously developing complications, and late-night alarms triggered without explanation. Nurses swore they had seen unfamiliar faces in restricted areas, only for those people to vanish before being questioned. Every story had been brushed off as coincidence or error, but could it have been more? Now Rex seemed to suggest it was. Officer Daniels felt his pulse quicken. He had learned to trust Rex's instincts over the years. The dog had uncovered hidden drugs during raids, found missing children in the woods, and even detected a man who had tried to slip past airport security with something he should not have carried. Rex's senses were sharper than any human eye or ear. If he was stopping this doctor, there had to be a reason. The doctor's hands twitched slightly as he adjusted his stethoscope, his face tightening under the weight of the dog's growl. It was a small gesture, almost unnoticeable, but Rex's reaction sharpened. His bark exploded, fierce and commanding, startling the entire crowd. A couple of patients shrieked, and a nurse dropped a tray of files. Something was wrong, very wrong. The hospital security team hurried forward, drawn by the commotion. They tried to calm the situation, but Rex refused to back down. His body edged forward, straining the leash as if trying to keep the doctor from setting even 1 foot inside. Questions began to swirl among the onlookers. Was the doctor really who he claimed to be? Was something hidden beneath his coat? Could this be connected to the string of strange incidents inside the hospital? Officer Daniels requested backup, his voice firm, but beneath it all he felt the gnawing edge of unease. He could see the man's hospital badge, his lab coat, even his polished shoes. Everything looked in place, but Rex's instincts could not be ignored. The crowd's whispers grew into an uneasy buzz. Nurses exchanged nervous glances. Patients shifted uncomfortably in their wheelchairs. And still the doctor stood silent, staring down at the animal with something unreadable in his eyes. The moment stretched thin. Then, with a suddenness that froze everyone, Rex lunged forward, not to bite, but to dig his nose aggressively at the doctor's coat pocket. Daniels pulled him back, but Rex pawed and barked, his focus locked on that single pocket as if the entire truth lay within it. The doctor's face paled, his hand instinctively pressed against his coat, shielding the pocket as though guarding it. The movement was small, but it sent shivers through the crowd. Why protect a pocket so fiercely unless there was something inside worth hiding? Hospital security demanded the doctor step aside for inspection. The man hesitated, his jaw tightening before finally agreeing. He slipped off his coat slowly, laying it over a bench. Rex immediately sniffed and clawed at it, his barking sharp and relentless. The pocket was heavy, too heavy for a pen, too bulky for a notebook. The air grew thick with dread. As security reached into the fabric, time seemed to slow. Every eye at the hospital entrance locked onto the scene, breaths held tight. What would they pull out? Why would a doctor risk carrying something that set off a canine like this? And most important of all, what did this mean for the mysterious happenings inside the hospital? The crowd waited, frozen. The hand withdrew from the coat pocket. A small black pouch emerged, clenched tightly between gloved fingers. It looked ordinary at first glance, yet the weight of the moment made it anything but. Rex barked even louder now, eyes blazing with urgency. The pouch was unzipped slowly. Inside lay several small glass vials, their clear liquid catching the morning light. Each was marked only with strange symbols, no medical labels, no hospital markings. The hospital entrance fell into stunned silence. Who was this man really? What were those vials? And how did this connect to the unexplained events within the hospital walls? The doctor's expression shifted, not panic, but something colder. He muttered under his breath, eyes darting to the crowd as though calculating his next move. Security tightened their grip, pulling him aside. And Rex sat down firmly on the marble floor, his mission clear. He had stopped something before it could enter the hospital. But the full truth, the hidden web of what those vials were and what they meant, was only just beginning to unravel. The crowd could feel it. This was no simple incident. Something larger was buried beneath the surface, waiting to be revealed. And Rex had just clawed open the first layer of the mystery. The vials glistened faintly in the light, the clear liquid inside carrying more weight than anyone standing there could comprehend. For a long moment, silence gripped the hospital entrance. Even the usual sounds of the city seemed to vanish. The honk of cars, the distant wail of an ambulance, the shuffle of feet, all muted under the suffocating weight of discovery. Rex sat firm, eyes locked on the pouch as if he had unveiled the very heart of a storm. His low growl carried not menace but warning. The man in the white coat, who moments earlier had called himself a doctor, now looked cornered. Security officers flanked him, their grips tight. Yet his face revealed no panic, only a strange calculation. His lips pressed thin, his gaze flicked toward the hospital entrance as though his mind still sought escape. Officer Daniels crouched beside Rex, his hand steadying the dog, but his eyes were on the vials. He knew enough to realize these were no ordinary medications. The absence of hospital labels, the strange coded markings, they screamed secrecy, danger. And suddenly, threads from weeks of strange incidents inside the hospital began to knot together. The missing medications, the unexplained alarms in the night, patients suffering unexpected complications, unfamiliar figures slipping through restricted wards. It had seemed random, almost like human error. But now, looking at those vials, it felt deliberate. Someone had been working from inside, hidden under the guise of medical staff. The crowd murmured nervously, questions spilling from lips but never forming answers. What were the vials? Who was this man? What had he planned to do with them inside the hospital walls? The pouch was passed to a hazmat team that had rushed to the scene. One by one, the vials were sealed inside protective containers. Preliminary testing devices were brought out, their tiny screens blinking as they scanned the liquid. Then the first result came in, enough to ripple through everyone's chest like thunder. The vials contained concentrated compounds not approved for any medical use, strong toxins capable of shutting down vital systems when administered in precise doses. To the untrained eye, they looked like harmless fluids. To an expert, they were lethal weapons disguised as medicine. Whispers broke into gasps. The man had not come to heal, he had come to harm. It all fit now. The sudden unexplained deteriorations in patients had not been accidents. They had been deliberate acts masked under the noise of a busy hospital. And this man, wearing the coat of a doctor, carrying an ID that looked real, had likely been slipping through unnoticed for weeks, if not longer. But Rex had stopped him today. The false doctor was restrained and led into custody, his silence chilling. His eyes, cold and unblinking, scanned the crowd as though memorizing faces. But Rex barked once more, a sharp, defiant sound that cut through his stare and drew the crowd's attention back to where it belonged. The true hero of the morning stood on 4 legs. Inside the hospital, administrators scrambled to review records. Patient charts were pulled, medication logs examined, and surveillance footage replayed. And slowly the evidence lined up. This man had been infiltrating the hospital under a stolen identity. The real doctor whose ID card he carried was out of the country on a medical conference. The impersonator had studied his life, his mannerisms, and had walked in under the radar, ready to use the hospital as a stage for something sinister. Why here? Why this hospital? That piece took longer to surface, but when it did, it shook the staff to their core. The facility was about to receive several high-profile patients in the coming weeks. Individuals under protection whose treatment had been scheduled quietly to avoid publicity. Someone had wanted to sabotage it in advance, but Rex had caught the plan before it could unfold. The dots, once scattered and confusing, now drew into a clear and frightening picture. Every missing drug, every alarm, every patient harmed had been part of a carefully woven plan. And the breakthrough had come not through cameras, not through human vigilance, but through the nose and instincts of a police dog who refused to let a threat walk through the hospital's front doors. Doctors and nurses who had been fearful in the morning now came by one to pat his fur, whispering thanks. Families of patients stopped to smile, some with tears in their eyes. Children reached out their small hands to touch him gently, their parents nodding in gratitude. Rex, for all his courage, accepted it with calm dignity. To him, it was simply instinct, duty, an unspoken promise he carried in every step beside his handler. But to everyone else, it was more. Days later, in a gathering held at the city's central precinct, officers, hospital staff, and families of patients stood together under the wide American flag fluttering above. The police chief stepped forward with a polished box in hand. Cameras clicked, capturing the moment. Rex was led to the front, his harness gleaming, his stance proud. Officer Daniels knelt beside him, one hand firm on his loyal partner's shoulder. The chief spoke of the hospital incident, of the danger that had been stopped, of the lives unknowingly saved, of the mystery unraveled because one dog refused to ignore what others could not see. His words carried weight, but it was the sight of Rex that moved the crowd most. The box was opened. Inside lay a gleaming medal, engraved with the words "for bravery and service beyond measure." It was clipped gently onto Rex's harness as applause thundered across the hall. Some clapped with tears streaking their cheeks, others with smiles stretched wide, but all with hearts filled by the same truth. Rex had not only stopped a man, he had saved a hospital. He had saved countless lives. He had restored safety where fear had quietly been growing. And in that moment, beneath the shining medal, Rex sat proud and still, the silent hero whose instincts had changed everything. And that's how one police dog stopped a nightmare before it even began. But here's the thing, stories like this, they drop here first, and you don't want to miss the next twist. So hit like, tap subscribe, and stay ready, because the next story might just leave you frozen.